Today we're going to be looking at the what to expect in the December's point update, and honestly it is a lot to take in as already they have moved the official launch date to the 19th for North America and 17th at the OTS stores. So instead of the 15th, they pushed it a couple days, so that is good to see. And after that, let's get into it. So the next update will be based on results and deck lists received from tournaments, starting with YCS Pittsburgh. So you also have the North American Remote Duel or YCS, and also on top of that, I think there's YCS Merida and a few other events here and there. And thank you for everyone who's been submitting deck lists. Keep them coming. Just so everyone knows, we do give strongest weight to completed submissions from tournaments as a best of three, where we'll see all deck lists, since that's the most accurate way to compile the census data. But honestly, I can't wait to see what's in here. So let's get into it. So, severe performance outliers as our first category, being the census data. This includes cards both on a deck level and individual level. For example, Dracotail's performance as a deck since October puts it in line for more increases, and Droll Lockbird's performance as an individual card puts it in line for an increase as well, more so in North America than Europe, which is interesting. Droll Lockbird is this one pivotal card in the format where it can end turns, and honestly, it is a card that needs more points because if it has 5 points and you look at something like Book of Moon and Ash Blossom, why do those have 7? So I definitely think that they're going to up Drone Lockbird to maybe 20 points or even 25 points because honestly, make it where it costs more to run an impactful hand trap compared to something that's low impact, and really, that would be better. As always, this is the most important criteria and fundamental principle of Genesys. Cards seeking excessive play see their costs go up, other cards come down, while keeping OTKs boxed out. And everything listed below is just part of our initial ongoing early access tuning, and they're going to be exiting the early access in the future, which is going to be sometime next year. So they also have more things planned that are for the long term, and those are pretty extensive. After that, they just talk about here the performance outliers, what it kind of does, and sometimes, although they do assign points to some of the new cards right out the gate, which isn't perfect, look at Branded below, because they kind of just ruined Branded. But on that note, let's go on to cards that attack the extra deck and deck. So we mentioned Runic last time in the yesterday's post, but this category also includes the new Hekahan's Gyges, the Hekahan Xeno, Cool Tune Clip, and Cool Tune Q. So these are cards that attack the top of the deck, the opponent's extra deck, the opponent's extra deck, and Q is just a really good card, honestly, because this is going to be your one card starter for Killer Tune, just being able to have summoned from hand deck graveyard. And if it's sent to the graveyard as increment material, you can excavate the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck, banish one of them, and place the other on the top or bottom of the deck. So honestly, this is a really powerful card, and I definitely see it getting points. And after that, cards that multiply excessively, being Dododo Warrior. This is the poster card for this category, so it's definitely going to be having more points added to it. And after that, we have cards that insulate one-turn combos. So this is in Pittsburgh, players started gravitating in masses towards cards like Crosshat Designator and Trap Tricks or Falasia that helped you force through your turn 1 combos, even if your opponent has a way to respond. The price on these are kind of cards at the moment is a bit too much of a bargain, but for how much you stand to gain. Basically, the counters to the counters should be more expensive than the counters themselves. We might need to go into this more in another article. So one of the things with Crosshat Designator, a lot of players are using it at 3, and this card has a lower point cost than normal, and it has 10 points. Even I'm running 3 of it because, hey, it's a really good card to counter specific hand traps like Droll and Lockbird, and even things like Nibiru and Ash Blossom. Then you have Trap Tricks for Falasia. This is another card that's just a really powerful rank 4 in the rank 4 toolbox, and really I could see it getting more points other than 10. Or if they want to lower or just keep it the same, honestly, this is just for rank 4 toolboxes or any deck that can summon it itself. Towers monsters. Monsters that are pretty much immune to other card effects. Likewise, we're going to to crank up the cost of monsters like Lunalite Liger Dancer and Super Quantal Mech King Great Magnus, so you'll have fewer points to give them generic backups. So one of the things about this, already many players were already running kaijus. Some were running 3 Gamma Seal, others were running 3 Comungus and another one, because we know how to out these and they're not really that much of an issue. Now, one of the things that I do want to say is that Liger Dancer is a really good card, especially with Lunalite, where they could just turbo out 2 of these through their combo, and so far it's 0 points, and Super Quantal King Great Magnus is another card that I think also has 0 points, because tower-like monsters, they've always existed in Yu-Gi-Oh! And there's currently just a thing where, oh, if you draw this, you pretty much win. So that's one of the things I do want to say, is that the format does have counters to these cards, but it's definitely takes up deck space, and adding points to them would be good, but that means you had to go through all the other tower-like monsters to do the same exact thing. And after that, we're looking at readjusting extra deck monsters that get you another card. So separate from the ones that cheat out another extra deck monster, these are ones that allow you to get another card in some way, like Gaga Gaga Girl, and then Wind Up Carriers and Matey are both cards in this category. So Carrier Detach Material, summon out a Wind Up from deck, and I think this just allows you to do what? Detach Material, if this has any of those, detach material, add a Gaga Automat or Exceed card. Okay, yeah, this literally gets you everything that you need. So this is one of the cards that players use Droll against before they even get to use the effect. So really, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with these. Themes that weren't tempting. Last time we reduced points on some themes that were popular internally but not externally. So they're gonna do it again with Dragon Maid, Sword Soul, Tenyi, Snake Eye, Ninjas again, and maybe Centurion and Six Samurai, although they're trickier. I do agree. So Dragon Maid is one of those decks where if you give them a little too much, they don't do anything. But if you reduce the point cost just enough, they can go a mile. Same with Sword Soul Tenyi, that is a deck that has a lot of points clashing with each other, and I could definitely understand them wanting to reduce those. Snake Eye is weaker, especially in a format where there's no Link monsters, but there's still Exceed monsters and Synchro plays you could use. Then we also have Ninjas. They have another point reduction again, which is kind of funny. People want to play the deck, but it costs too much to run a lot of their monsters for the extra deck. And then Centurion might be very interesting to see what they do with that. And finally, Six Samurai. That one's going to be extremely tricky, especially with Gateway of the Six and just a couple other cards here and there that could cause potential loops in the future. Now, they also talk about reweighting some of the point distributions. As example, on this is the adventure cards, where Rite of Art Messier, Water Enchanters are at 5 each. And if you want to run a playset of each, that's 15, so 30 total. And then while the high spec cards like Wandering Griffin Rider is at 20, causing you have to use 50 points for the engine. So they're probably going to be reweighing it so you can run it more easily. And then Gladiator Beasts and Christrons are also being looked at for this, so that's understandable. A more high-profile case like Branded, where the Fallen Virtuous came out, and we figured everyone would want to play it at 3, so we're balancing things, putting points on the extra monsters, and honestly, that kind of just ruined Branded. From what we're hearing, most Branded players would have been perfectly happy if it was just 1 or 2 copies of their new spells cards, and would have preferred the extra deck costs to stay where they were, so we're going to make that correction. So it's going to be, okay, cool, Fallen Virtuous is going to have point costs currently, and it might get reduced a little. Same for Branded Fusion. But the extra deck is going to be corrected back to what it was. And this is an example of how, when we hit cards before they're out, we might guess wrong sometimes, but we're happy to correct what was, or what is for the next list. And then finally, generic housekeepings. They really didn't talk much on specific cards, but there's several handy generic cards that almost no one is using at their current value that will drop. We're also figuring out how to gradually to make these declines. If a card isn't played, but then it drops to 0, suddenly everyone would play it at 3. And then it's just yo-yos back and forth. There's a sweet spot somewhere. The next update after this one will happen around the release of Burst Protocol. There are no official large-scale Genesis events between now and then, so the primary purpose of that update will be to add points to cards releasing in Burst Protocol and adjust other costs based on the additions of Burst Protocol. And one of the things I do want to talk about, the sweet spot is what you can do is probably reduce points by 3 or maybe 5, or maybe just a couple points. So there's a lot that they could do with putting cards back into the whole entire format, and that is understandable. So you have ways to actually have cards to slowly peel off, because if we look at the list, it is a long list. And some of the cards I could see getting pulled off are things like Butterfly Dagger Elma, while increasing points to somewhere else. You even have something like Creature Swap. Honestly, I don't know why that has 1 point. Then other cards like, oh, I don't know. There's just so many cards on here that have 1 points that don't really need it. Ra's Disciple could be potentially one of them, but that would conflict with something else. Um, Astral Karibo would kind of reduce down to 1 if really, but I can see what they mean. They've set it up where there's a lot of things that can happen, and there's a lot of cards that have points. Something like maybe Dark End Evaporation Dragon could go down to 4, or even something like, I don't know, Dominus Spiral could just go down to 0 because not many decks would want to play it right now. And honestly, I don't see a future deck really using it, unlike Impulse, Purge, and even Songs. Droll and Lockbird I could definitely see going up in cost, or that's funny, it doesn't have 0/0. Like ninjas are hurting, Metamorphosis people are playing, which is cool. Um, Cicada King is 5 points, but that's understandable. It's kind of just things like Snake Eye, Ash, and Poplar. Those are at 5s. Let's just see the other Snake Eye cards real quick, because that's one I'm interesting. Snake Eyes. Okay, so Snake Eye, and Original Sinful Spoil Snake Eye, they have it at 100. I don't think you need it at 100. I think what you could do, you could put this down to like 90, and then have these at like 6, maybe. No, not even 6. You could just put these down to 3. So you can have 1 OSS, 1 Ash, 1 Poplar. The main reason why OSS was really good was because, well, sometimes you could use Link monsters like Link Karibo. But without Link monsters, you're kind of just, eh? But it would be nice to give Snake Eyes an advantage and actually something, because right now it's just, okay, cool, I died to 1 hand trap and I don't have any follow-up really. And you're using 5 points on Ash, 5 points on Poplar, and then does Bonfire have any points? Yes, it does, 33 points. So right there is 63 points, and Snake Eye doesn't really need those points. Same for something like Ancient Gear, which is 33 on Advance and Statue, which honestly doesn't need to be there. Rongo, definitely, I want to see more points too. But other cards that, honestly, there's a lot of balancing that they need to do with how many cards right now? I think it's like 520, 596 cards. That's a lot. And a lot of the 100s make sense. But hopefully this next point list update is going to be very interesting. And I just saw a Telethon here, so really Morphtronic Telethon, that could potentially go down to 51 to give Morphtronic something, because I really don't think people want to play Morphtronic with 50 pointed Telethon. Like, that would be a fun deck to play. But honestly, I can't wait to see what they have planned for the next one. But tell me what you think about the Genesis update down in the comments below. I will link this blog post as well. But I'll see you all in the next video. If you all enjoyed this video, hit that like button down below, and if you want to show support, please hit that subscribe button as well. And I do also have channel memberships, and if you want to support the channel more, it would be much appreciated. Thank you to FGH for supporting the channel, and I'll see you all in the next video.